You're never too busy, too tired, too old, or too anything to pursue your dreams. Welcome to the Distracted Dreamer podcast, where you'll learn how to move all those never-ending distractions aside and chase your dreams with confidence. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Distracted Dreamer. I am your host, Carlene, and you are going to love this episode, especially if you have a wandering mind. So have you ever noticed how your best ideas arrive like when you're not even trying? Like the shower epiphany, the best ideas come in the shower and dang it, now you can't put it in your notes app or write it down. Or how about just standing in the grocery store line and all of a sudden you've got 5 ideas about nothing at all, really, but ideas nonetheless. Or this happens for me all the time. The solution that appears the moment you close your laptop and walk away. Today, we're talking about something we don't give ourselves enough permission for, and that's daydreaming. Now, when I was growing up, you're going to get a little peek into my childhood here. Boredom was just part of life. We had stretches of time where there was nothing to do, and those quiet spaces became fertile ground for our imaginations. We'd stare at the ceiling, we'd doodle, we would just wander outside and just let our thoughts meander wherever they were going to take us. And this was back when there were only 5 channels on TV and only 1 TV in the house. And what about those long car rides where we would simply stare out the window? So often we were told to go outside and play, completely unsupervised, mind you. And we had to figure out what to do with ourselves. No matter the weather. If it rained, we splashed in the puddles. If it snowed, we pulled on our snow pants, our hats, scarves, and mittens, and we dragged our sleds to the closest hill. And yes, we complained that we were bored all the time. But somehow, we learned to embrace it. We played tag, every kind of tag, freeze tag, flashlight tag, tackle tag. My sisters and I put on shows, and my older sister, she was always the queen in whatever make-believe we dreamed up. We colored and we mixed the weirdest concoctions in the kitchen. I vividly remember making strange things with powdered Jell-O. And I also read and reread my mom's classics like Little Women and Huckleberry Finn. So many books. And you know what? I long for those days of boredom and ease. No pressure to perform. And out of that came a lot of play, so many fun stories, and so many great new ideas. But now, the moment that we pause, even to take a breath, there's this pressure to be productive. If we're caught daydreaming, it looks like we're slacking. Or if we drift off at our desk, we scold ourselves. And somewhere along the way, we turned stillness into something that we're ashamed of. But what if we flipped that story back to the way it was in my childhood? What if we recognized that daydreaming, it isn't laziness at all? It's really a natural function of the brain, and it actually serves a very real purpose. And here's where recovery comes in, because recovery, it gives us the space to daydream. And in my last episode, Embracing Self-Care and Recovery, Fuel Your Dreams and Prevent Burnout, we talked about how rest isn't indulgent, it's fuel. It's what allows our minds and bodies to reset so we can actually connect to our dreams. And daydreaming, that's one of the ways recovery shows up. When we slow down, when we take care of ourselves, we open the door for imagination to wander back in. Pretty cool. So these 2 episodes, they really belong together because recovery is the gateway to daydreaming, and daydreaming is the spark that fuels our creativity. So by the end of this episode, you're going to hear why daydreaming is essential for creativity and problem solving. We'll explore how loosening control lets ideas find you, and gather a few gentle ways to welcome more of it back into your days without forcing it or overstructuring it. Alrighty, you ready to dive in? Because you know where I'm going to start. I'm always starting with the science. And neuroscientists call it the default mode network. a set of the brain's regions that light up when we're not actively focused on a task. So when you're staring out the window, or you're taking a shower, or you're waiting for the water to boil or the paint to dry, that network, it starts humming. And what does that network do? It connects the dots. It goes back and it reviews our memories. It reviews possibilities. It rehearses conversations. It spins up creative what-ifs. In other words, when we daydream, our brain is still deeply at work, but just in a very different, more spacious way than when we're focused on something. So psychologist Jerome Singer, sometimes called the father of daydreaming research, found that positive, constructive daydreaming can boost problem solving and even empathy. And studies from the University of British Columbia showed that the brain is actually more active during mind wandering than during the high focus tasks. Interesting. When we let ourselves drift, it's not distraction, it's design. We always say that we're distracted when our mind wanders. What if you're just daydreaming? It's our mind's way of refreshing and reorganizing and recombining things. Think about it. How many of your best ideas arrived in the middle of doing nothing? And notice that spark often comes after you've rested. Recovery and daydreaming are partners here. The reset makes the drift possible. Now, here's the heart of it. We need permission to daydream. That's the place that we are in society here. And since the world rarely gives it to us, we have to give it to ourselves. So I'm giving you permission to daydream. You go do this. And I want you to think of boredom not as a problem to solve, but it's a doorway. Those nothing moments, that's where imagination breathes. So here are some ways to gently reclaim that breathing space. Protect little white spaces in your day. The walk, that pause before opening an app, or the time while the water's boiling. Also, try a phone-free pocket of time every day, even if it's just 10 minutes. And just let your mind wander without interruption. And finally, instead of cramming every little gap in, let one or two just stay empty. See what kind of floats in. And remember, noticing is enough. You don't have to bring every daydream to life. Just noticing it. That's the beauty of a daydream. The beauty of daydreaming is that it's free play for the mind. And giving yourself permission to rest, true recovery, it makes these daydreaming moments more nourishing, feel less guilty, and much more natural. Now, while those are great ways to start daydreaming, I think the real lesson of slowing down can be learned from our friends across the pond. My dear friend Alicia, who you met back on episode 35, she sent me a reel after listening to last week's episode on recovery that reminded me of how we have so much to learn from other cultures. And you know those places that build slowness right into the daily life? I'm talking about Europe. Shops still close midday. Whole towns pause for lunch or rest. And long holidays are considered essential, not indulgent. And there is some research to back this up. So studies in Spain have shown that the traditional siesta can actually improve memory and cognitive performance, especially when naps are short and restorative. The European Working Conditions Survey also found that countries with generous vacation policies report higher overall life satisfaction and lower burnout rates. That makes total sense. I don't know why we can't get on board with this. And the OECD's Better Life Index consistently shows that nations where people work fewer hours, like Denmark or the Netherlands, they score higher in well-being and work-life balance. Now, while these studies don't measure daydreaming directly, they do highlight how slowing down improves mental health and creates more unstructured time. And unstructured time is exactly where daydreaming thrives. When a culture normalizes rest individuals don't feel guilty for looking out the window or taking an afternoon walk. They just see it as part of being human. And that shared permission, it makes it easier for imagination to surface and for creativity to replenish itself. So what can we learn from this? Well, maybe that giving ourselves permission isn't only personal, it can be cultural. And I know, while we can't change society overnight, we can borrow the spirit of those pauses, like a daily rhythm that values presence, rest, and the mental playfulness that comes when we simply slow down. And when we slow down, recovery and daydreaming meet. They work hand in hand to bring us back to ourselves. And I don't just see this in the research. I have felt this in my bones. And one of the clearest memories I have of this kind of slowness was during a trip to Italy where we were celebrating a friend's birthday. Our time there reminded me of the beauty in the simple things, like picking fresh vegetables from the garden outside our hillside villa, and starting our mornings with our coffee or tea while gazing over the rolling green hills. Or my favorite memory is sipping wine as we wandered the cobblestone streets and browsed these quaint little shops. Like we were never in a hurry to get anywhere. Now, in the touristy areas like Rome, the Trevi Fountain, you could feel the American hustle energy. But once we stepped outside the tourist zones and into the smaller towns, the entire pace shifted. People paused to greet one another. Shops closed without apology. There was no guilt in taking an afternoon rest, just an acceptance that this is life. I felt the calm immediately, the sense of no rush, no stress. And it made me dream about spending 3 months there someday, a true sabbatical, to reconnect with myself, to let my mind wander, and to remember how to live without the constant weight of expectation and judgment. Now, I give Italy a lot of airtime on this podcast, so let's look at some other countries. France has its August exodus, where businesses close their doors for weeks. And I have to tell you that Italy celebrates a Ferragosto that in modern day signifies time to relax, enjoy the summer, and spend time with family and friends. Doesn't that sound wonderful? And many people take additional days off before or after that August 15th and create a longer vacation around it. And then there's Spain. They embrace the siesta and a slower rhythm through the hottest month. And Northern European countries like Denmark and the Netherlands, they consistently show high life satisfaction by protecting work-life balance and honoring vacation time. And guess what? The world keeps spinning. It does. So why do we feel so guilty for taking time off? I've learned Europeans don't see rest as unproductive. It's essential. They know play fuels creativity, connection, and presence. Now, I don't know the answer to this, but the question is the ultimate balance working like an American and resting like a European? So can we still love the American dream, the opportunity, the ambition, building something from scratch? Because it's truly a privilege, and I believe it should be appreciated, and it's not to be taken for granted. And so I wonder if we can borrow from the European dream too, of presence, rest, and the freedom to enjoy it. Because to me, true success is really the ability to share life with those that we love most and have the freedom to spend our time in a way that feeds our souls. And daydreaming and bringing those dreams to life is all part of that. I mentioned before that this links beautifully to my last episode, Embracing Self-Care and Recovery. If you haven't heard it yet, I invite you to give it a listen because these two conversations are really part of the same thread. How slowing down and caring for ourselves, it opens the door for creativity, recovery, and yes, daydreaming. So this week, your challenge is simply this. Give yourself permission to daydream. When you catch yourself drifting, instead of snapping back, just smile at it, let it play out. Then you can jot down one thing that you noticed and text me at the link in the show notes and let me know what surprising thought found you. I would love to hear from you. Daydreaming isn't wasted time. It's the space where creativity grows, and we just have to trust it enough to leave it be. And remember, recovery creates the conditions for daydreaming to flourish. As we wrap up, I can't help but return to that dream of a long Italian sabbatical, 3 months of unhurried mornings and lingering conversations and afternoons that belong to no one. To me, that isn't just travel, it's the essence of daydreaming. And that's the invitation I want to leave with you. Let your own version of that sabbatical live in your daily life. Even 5 minutes of true presence can be a pocket of Italy, a pocket of daydreaming. And it does start with that recovery, the quiet act of giving yourself enough rest to dream again. All right, my sweet friend. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And remember, your dreams, they are waiting for you. And your time, it's now. And I'll be back next week, ready to welcome you to our next conversation. Oh, and one more thing. This is the legal language. You know, the stuff that the lawyers put together, and they say that I need to read this to you. So here we go. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. I'm just your friend. I'm not a licensed therapist. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. Got it? Good. I will see you in the next episode.